Now guys, we've never actually reviewed an M-rated game here on Spawn Point before, so this is a heads up to grown-ups that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has been recommended for ages 15 and up for moderate fantasy violence.
Yes, however, we know that the Zelda series is much beloved by all ages, and after spending 40 hours with this game, we do believe it is a family-friendly experience.
And we do know that Spawnlings are super keen to hear about it.
Yes, so with all that out of the way, Goose, where do we even begin?
Why, Barjo, with adventure!
Like we've waited an eternity for this new Zelda adventure, and now that we've played it, I can happily say it is well worth the wait. This game is massive.
Oh, it's huge, isn't it? Once again, the adventure takes place in the Kingdom of Hyrule. However, while previous games in the series have been about following a particular set path or linear storyline, Breath of the Wild instead embraces a fully open world that lets you explore anywhere and everywhere. But before that, we should start with the story.
Oh, good idea, Goose. As the game begins, we find our hero Link has awoken after a 100-year snooze in a weird kind of day spa, with no gear, no clothes, and no memory of his past. The old amnesia lost memory trick. But at least you can now speak to characters you meet along the way, such as the mysterious old man you first encounter.
Eventually, he reveals the truth behind your strange slumber and the story of the evil Calamity Ganon, who used an army of ancient machines to defeat the people of Hyrule. However, at the last minute, he was ensnared within the castle by Princess Zelda, who has remained trapped there, awaiting Link's return.
You are our final hope.
But before you can venture to the ends of the world, you must first find your way off the Great Plateau. It's a smaller slice of the open world, and it's designed for you to get to grips with Link's controls and abilities. It's kind of like a tutorial level, but it's huge.
As Link explores the plateau, he activates an ancient technology, sending beacon towers rising and reactivating dormant shrines across the land. Climbing these towers expands your map, while completing the shrines earns you spirit orbs, as well as Link's new abilities in the form of runes.
I loved the look and sound of all this ancient technology. You really feel like it has come from some all-powerful ancient race, the way it glows and pulses throughout structures and artifacts.
The game's shrines are small puzzle rooms that often require you to use multiple abilities to complete. It breaks up the puzzle element of the game into smaller, bite-sized chunks, instead of the hard slog of a full dungeon.
Yes, and unlike previous adventures, a lot of Link's abilities are available early on, giving you the tools you'll need to defeat enemies and solve puzzles straight away. These include moving metal with a powerful magnet, freezing water into ice blocks, even pausing time in specific objects. These runes are all controlled using the power of the Sheikah Slate, a mysterious device Link obtains when he wakes up.
Then, once you've gained the much-needed paraglider from the mysterious stranger, you're free to leap off into the world in any direction and explore to your heart's content.
Oh, it's such a great way to start the adventure, isn't it? Looking off into the distance, picking a point, and knowing you can head there straight away is such an exciting feeling of freedom. Do you venture off to the nearest town to meet the locals? Maybe you could try climbing that daunting volcano in the north. Or simply glide down into the sandy canyons to the south. The choice is yours.
I was a bit overwhelmed to begin with. In fact, I instantly got lost in a forest.
Yes, and everyone's adventure will probably start out a little different. I started out by heading to the tallest peak I could find, which in hindsight might not have been the best idea. Link can now climb on almost every surface in the world, giving you the freedom to traverse even the most undulating of terrain. However, doing so uses up Link's stamina, a feature we first saw introduced in Skyward Sword.
Affirmative. Running, swimming, gliding, and climbing will all consume precious stamina, so it's important to keep an eye on it, as running out can be extremely dangerous.
It is great to see such a focus on Link's movement, because you will spend a lot of time just running about, exploring the wilderness, and soaking in the stunning views. It's very pretty. But while it may be beautiful to look at, the wild is also a very dangerous place. In fact, guys, I would say this might just be the toughest Zelda game out there.
Oh, totally, Barjo. You can easily become overwhelmed by extreme weather, or you may encounter enemies too tough to defeat. These classic Zelda foes will put up a real fight, calling for help, surrounding you, even riding on horseback.
And you know, Goose, I think potentially it's this combat that gave this game its M rating.
Which I find a bit strange because I feel like I've seen more intense action in other PG games.
To add to the challenge of the combat, Link's weapons can now break, meaning you'll constantly be replacing and upgrading them along your journey.
And guys, I wasn't sure I'd like this straight away. The weapons don't seem to last very long and they always break at the worst possible times. But the more I played, I realised it does force you to improvise. You could, for instance, sneak around a camp of sleeping bokoblins and pick them off with a bow. Or if you're feeling bold, why not surf a shield straight into camp before leaping off and firing your bow in slow motion?
The second option, please. Radical! In fact, I found the best moments in this game revolved around experimentation. When you think, I wonder if this will work. And then it does. It's such brilliant, emergent game design.
Totally. And I think we'll be coming up with more creative and interesting solutions to problems well after we finish the story.
There is certainly a lot to keep you busy out in the world. However, if you're determined to reach the castle and save Zelda, you'll have to journey to each corner of the map and free the 4 divine beasts. Giant destructive machines that now roam the land!
Yes, and these do feel more like the traditional dungeons from previous games.
Oh, they're great.
All right, easy.
They each have a set of tricky puzzles to complete before facing off with a classic boss fight that grants you an extra heart and a useful power to defeat Ganon.
And just working out how to gain access to these giant beasts in the first place is a real thrill. But of course, you'll need to complete a couple of quests before you encounter them, often helping out interesting characters who all have an important part to play in the greater story. It's classic Zelda, and guys, I loved it.
I loved it too, Goose. In fact, I found it so hard to fault this game at all. There's so much to see and do in this world, and I found the longer I played, the more Breath of the Wild would surprise me. I just have to give this 5 out of 5 rubber chickens.
Barjo, I could not agree more. Nintendo have taken everything we've grown to love about the Zelda series, and they've just gone wild with it. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 rubber chickens as well.
Oh, double 5s! How will we celebrate, Goose?
You know what, Barjo? I got a real taste for nature playing this game, so why don't we take a break and get a breath of fresh air ourselves?
Sounds wild.
Watch out for bugs!
The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is a ground-up remake of the 1993 Game Boy title. It scales the original up pixel by pixel in all its unique and often unusual glory.
Most unusual is that this one doesn't take place in Hyrule like pretty much every other Zelda game. Actually, Link's Awakening doesn't even feature Zelda. Washing up on the island of Koholint, Link is rescued by a young girl named Marin. Almost instantly, he's tasked with collecting the 8 instruments of the Sirens in order to awaken the legendary Windfish, to then be able to leave the island. The poor boy just doesn't catch a break, does he?
Not at all, and they didn't even ask him if he wants to leave. What if he likes it there, with its gorgeous coastline and numerous terrifying dungeons? Actually, fair enough, Link. Get out of there. In each of the island's many dungeons, you'll fight off baddies, solve some puzzles, and unlock a new ability. Then continue using that new ability to solve increasingly harder puzzles take down a hefty boss, and unlock all the sought-after musical instruments. It's a fairly rewarding dungeon system, knowing you'll not only progress through the story, but unlock a new ability in the process. Plus, you'll always have them on hand, mapping them to either your X or Y button, whatever you see fit.
And that's where the remake makes its best deviation from the original. On Game Boy, you were constantly forced to swap your sword, shield, and power bracelet out for other abilities. Meaning you drop your weapon, protection, and ability to pick up a simple rock just to hop over a ledge. But thanks to the Switch's larger button count, the core essentials are always there, leaving 2 other slots available to swap in more situation-specific abilities. It's a simple bit of streamlining that clears up the original's clunkier gameplay.
And with that ever-expanding roster of abilities, you'll probably find yourself thinking, hey, I can put a hole in that wall now. As you track back through the world, previously inaccessible areas and puzzles will seem like a walk in the park, as you throw down a bomb to blast through a wall or bounce right across a gap. And whilst it is a fun notion that the world expands with you, I did often get a little annoyed when I couldn't progress. It just takes a bit to get used to because this game can be confusing.
Yeah, there are definitely some lulls as you wander through the world, desperately trying to work out what you've missed. Thankfully though, there are some helpful hints dropped around. You can stop by a phone booth where Old Man Ulrira will give you a helping hand, chat to the various island locals who will steer you in the right direction. That is, after you destroy their weirdly large collection of pots. And the all-knowing owl will show up to riddle you further hints. So you do have a few avenues to help you out. It always pays to chat to the locals.
But beware, chatting to the locals will embark you on one of video game's strangest fetch quests. Look, it's best you find out for yourself, but this quest line will have you acquiring and trading the oddest of objects to the strangest of people. With barely any logical through line, you'll probably just accidentally complete it. And it's not even optional. My brain was very much drained after it all. I just can't even look at a banana now.
Well, Link's Awakening has always been one of the weirder titles in the Zelda franchise, but the remake has managed to boil down that wackiness into an adorable art style. Everything in the village is so soft, cute, and almost Animal Crossing-esque. And then in the depths of the dungeons, you'll encounter some hilariously hideous monsters with some glaringly obvious weak points. Seeing how close they've come to the original's design is really impressive on its own, but to do it with such a lovely style is just
Agreed, though sometimes that visual loveliness does take a hit to the game's frame rate, but never enough to detract from the experience. And Jem, you know me, I love some music and sound design. The work done to lift the original's music through to 2019 is astounding. What was once chiptunes is now a sweeping orchestral sound. And hearing the jangle of chains as you pull along a bow wow, or the high-pitched slash of Link's sword, it's all kinds of lovely on the ears, but we should probably wrap this up. Jem?
As far as remakes go, this is a special one, bringing that classic Zelda formula into the modern age. With adorable visuals, inventive puzzle solving, and a distinct kooky charm. It's 4 out of 5 rubber chickens from me.
Whilst I can appreciate the sheer craft of breathing fresh life into this old classic, this franchise and its gameplay has evolved a bunch in the preceding decade. So taking a step back in time wasn't always the most enjoyable of experiences for me. So I'm giving The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening 3.5 out of 5 rubber chickens.
You know how Link can hold onto a chicken to glide off edges? Take us away.